Welcome to Brain Drop by VCOM Solutions. Every episode, we talk to IT leaders and experts, explore recent projects, and learn from their triumphs and challenges. We hope today's episode provides you with a unique window into the world of IT, where creativity meets problem solving and technology drives businesses forward. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo. Let's drop into today's conversation. Today on Brain Drop by VCOM Solutions, I am joined by Fred Donatucci, the Vice President of Information Technology at New-Indy Containerboard, a leading paper and packaging company that manufactures and supplies recycled containerboard to the corrugated box industry. Fred Donatucci has served as the VP of IT for New-Indy Containerboard for just about 3 years and has over 30 years of IT experience, specifically in the manufacturing industry. He has experienced great success in driving digital transformation and process improvement for businesses using innovation, strategic thinking, and leadership ability to effectively translate business initiatives into the technology that can make them happen. Fred, it's a pleasure having you on today.
Same here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your IT team and environment? How many team members do you have, and how many employees ultimately rely on your IT team?
Sure. My team is responsible for all the technology needs in New-Indy. So we have a group of skilled individuals who are passionate about building a strong IT team for the organization. New-Indy is a rapidly growing company, so mainly through mergers and acquisitions. We offer various services across New-Indy. One of our crucial functions is IT infrastructure and operations, which is the backbone of IT, which forms all the foundations of our activities, including managing local networks, switches, servers, systems, and enterprise tools. We also handle the enterprise service desk and provide desk side support to keep New-Indy's 24-hour paper mills running smoothly, as well as our box plants. And additionally, my team supports two different sets of application stacks. So one for our paper mill side and one for our box plant side. And then furthermore, we have project managers who make sure our initiatives, ensure things going smoothly. And we have a newly formed data and integration team that's helping drive some things. And probably last but not least is our cybersecurity team. And they work closely with our security partners to protect our company from ransomware, data loss, and other security incidents. So we have probably together around 65 dedicated individuals between employees and our trusted partners, responsible to cover all the employees and sites within the company, which is around 2,500 employees.
Wow. And obviously you as the driver of IT, you have a huge responsibility to kind of stay up to date and know things so you're able to kind of push things along. So with all the information out there, where do you go to kind of learn, grow, keep up to date?
Absolutely. Learning and staying relevant is incredibly important, not just for me, but for my entire team. So in today's fast-paced world, technology is constantly changing and evolving, and it's crucial to keep up to date so we can develop the relevant strategy for the company. One example is that we'll have information from a C-level peer can come up to you and say, how can we start using ChatGPT, or what sensors are the most relevant for our mills? And so we have to provide a well-informed answer and try to incorporate their strategy. So for me, there's several ways I try to stay up to date. It all starts with kind of like my morning ritual. So when I take some quiet time to think about my day and what information I'm going to need to navigate my meetings and task effectively. And then, I will look at some news. I'll read some articles as I'm getting ready. And then for my drive to work, if I'm not on a call, I'm usually on an audible book. I'm trying to understand something. I'm listening to something, trying to learn about technology, leadership, or team building. Because technology is just one part of it, but also how do you get the team to utilize all that stuff? So it's fascinating how it opens my mind to some new opportunities and possibilities. But besides that, having conversations like this, with other people in IT, being part of some organizations, going to some conferences, they all these forms validate my thinking and can challenge me to consider other technologies. Additionally, I participate in some advisory boards in some of these organizations. And one group I'm involved with in South Cal CIO group always says the answer is in the room. So meaning we can always get that valuable insight from our peers and the collective group of knowledge that's in there. So probably there are the different ways that I really go about trying to learn.
So with everything that you're taking in, what are your current thoughts on the present state of IT? What are those game changers? What are those challenges? And specifically in your industry, right? What are those hot issues, hot tickets?
Yeah. The current state of IT, it's changing rapidly, and some technologies are very disruptive. I guess the funny thing is, you probably could jump back 10 or 20 years and say the same thing, right? It's always like that.
Right.
I think the pace and the momentum of how technology changes and its level of disruption is different. I remember before SAP and ERPs were that big disruptive change in the 90s. Today, the whole industry, not just manufacturing, is facing things around generative AI, right? So AI is everywhere, incorporating everything we do. And it's not disrupting our businesses, but disrupting almost everything we do day in, day out. So for me, the challenge is how do we take a technology like this, as we're just getting off of data warehousing and information and getting the right information and machine learning. And how do we really look at that to say, what's the right way of incorporating into our business? How do we protect, IP and other stuff? And what do we use it to really improve what we're doing today? So the challenges around, the data people could be sharing out there, and how do you use it? In our industry, we also focus on things like downtime. We run 24 hours, 7 days a week to produce paper. And so for us, what technology can help us reduce that downtime? Is it sensors? Is it AI coming in and looking for things? We want to do predictive maintenance. So if things are going to break ahead of time, we want to know so we can run it and we can fix it and not have that downtime and run it more. So additional productivity and additional profitability for the company. So that's some of the challenges that we're really having, is how do we do that better?
Right. And so, and maybe it is related then, maybe it's not, but let's talk about kind of a recent significant IT project that your team completed. What was the reason for taking it on? What were your goals? And did you engage, like you said, you get a lot of your information from a lot of places.
Exactly.
So when you decided to take on this project, did you engage any outside teams to kind of help you out?
Okay, that's a great question. Let me set the stage a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, I think you mentioned I've been here for around 3 years, and we've been building out New-Indy as one group. When I came here, it was really a collection of acquisitions. So I was the first person in this role to lead the IT organization and build it out. And that whole enterprise coming together, we developed an initiative called One New-Indy. And One New-Indy was supposed to be one team, one set of applications, one email system, one directory of users, one process, one view of data, one everything, right? And that generated a number of projects. It generated projects to help consolidate some of our stuff that we're putting together. And it also generated projects that put us in applications in our current stack. So if we had our paper side of our business, the mills, we have certain applications. And so every time we have an acquisition, we would try to get them in there. The paper and the packaging side is the same thing. So one recent project comes to mind was consolidating a new acquisition from their current 20-year-old system that they were doing that's highly customized into our current application set and running that business on there. So that was kind of a challenge for us to do that. And when we looked at that, we've already established what our applications were going to be for that business. So we knew where we had to go to. We knew where we were at. The process was, how do we get there? And I think that was a challenge that we had to develop for that project.
So let's jump into that challenge. And how did you, to develop that?
Sure. So the main reason for taking this project on really was to incorporate them into our business processes. So as we looked at this, the goal of the project was really to operate the business effectively, get the metrics on the same view as everyone else, and just to be able to reduce the complexity of our application stack that we have to support. The business came on board during the pandemic, and things got delayed or slowed down during that. So we were looking at a site that's been sitting there for 2 years. So we worked with that business to find out what they were doing today and incorporating and matching those things to what we do in our other businesses and how do we get that on there. So that was the first part of getting it in place. We worked with both the employees at the site, my IT organization, some of the sister groups, some of the other businesses in that division, as well as we're a joint venture. So we're owned by 2 different companies. One of our parent companies also helped come in to establish some of these processes and help build out some IT for us.
When you kind of began this project and began to actually move it forward, what were some things that went well? And I know you said ultimately it was a challenge that you had to overcome, but were there challenges within trying to solve this challenge as well?
Well, really, the team made the difference. So anything in IT, you have technology, but the real thing is the people. And so we had a really strong set of people on that team. We had people from the business. We had people who knew the processes in the other sites, and they were able to pivot and put the time in to get things done. We had some long hours there, but for example, as we're looking at processes, we had the right level of knowledge. So when they looked at, here's how they do it here, and here's what we call it, here's what we do it here, we were able to have those conversations to put those processes together. So that went very well. We had the right people on there, the right knowledge on there. I think the one thing that didn't go as well and was a challenge for us is, as we did this in the past, a lot of it was, we'll take this business, we'll incorporate them into our process, and they'll run our systems, and things move on from there. They're now part of the big team. This company had some very unique processes that we didn't really do today. So as we were looking for it, there were some gaps there. Also, they were automated over 20 years, so they were highly customized. So people had a certain knowledge of their business process and how to do things that was different than our other sites. So it's kind of like, if you develop things and help people and automate things, it's great. But if you look back 10 years later, sometimes turns into a black box and people forget how to do things. And we had some of those problems in there too, that there was a lot of areas that people had a lot of automation and we had to change. So the challenge for us is we underestimated that. So we had an initial start date, and everything looked ready to go, but they couldn't operate the business in there because it was different. So we took a step back, looked at it, went through all those things and mapped them out. And then we, bringing some additional people in, we were able to break down that work, finding out what was really critical for them to go live, incorporate some new functionality now back into our core, and then build it out, and then deploy it probably, I think it was around 4 or 5 months later. So it was a little bit of a delay, but I think the solution we got was way better than what we originally thought.
I'm curious, in that 4 or 5 month delay, because obviously you were planning to deploy it then, what did you have to actually go through? Did you have to reteach them, retrain them? And then when did you finally decide, okay, we finally feel ready to now deploy and implement them into our business?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Because if you look at what happened when we were about to go live, before we're looking to go live, we found out, hey, these things don't really work. I don't know how to have this information. I'm missing this report. So we went through their business processes again, understood what they were doing today and what those gaps were. So during that time, it was really, what can we build in the current system that can do what they wanted to do? We had two different groups that were helping us. One was one of our parents. They have a tool that they bolt onto this that adds a lot of functionality, and they were able to fill some of that with their functionality and building out a little more. So we had that listed out. And as well as our internal resources, were able to build out some additional reports and automation. So we laid that all out. We assigned it to the tasks. And then we probably put the critical path together and we burned that down. Also, we put around 2 months of additional training in there to get the people to understand not just what we were building out, but the process, and a lot of day in the lives. So I think the tool that we had put in place, the new functionality, and plus the additional training of the people gave that good comfort zone. So when we went live, we were able to operate the business pretty well.
And I think you mentioned it, but obviously you said there were gaps. Was it kind of a equal compromise where they had to learn some of your things and how it worked and how to remember that? But then did you guys also take some of their automation and integrate that into your sort of process as well?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we did. So part of it was they had to learn what we did today, but there was things that, one, they were doing better than we were doing because they had 20 years to develop it. So they had some tools and automation and ways of looking at it. We said, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And that would save time, because we had people coming from the other two businesses that are in that division. And they said, yeah, we can use this. And then you're right. There were some other things that we'd have to make a slight change for them. Either it was called something differently or the process was slightly different. So it was kind of a blending of that. But at the end of the day, I mean, our real goal is to have a standard business process across that whole division. So
sure, they
had additional functionality, and I think we built that out and we're using it, and it gave us some new capabilities now in our other sites that they can do. But it was kind of that blending of both those things together.
Yeah, which is really cool. Did that 4 to 5 month delay severely impact anything, or were you able to, did you kind of put that into your calculations, if you will, of going, oh shoot, we might not be able to? How especially because it has to fulfill a certain like business objective.
Yep.
Was that 4 to 5 month delay detrimental at all, or was it able to be flexibly adjusted?
We were really lucky because we partnered with some outside partners who are really good at some flexibility to support us. So we had the right resources from them. I think the person who probably got most impacted was me because some of my resources weren't able to do the next project yet. But that was fine because it was such a critical need for the business to get this done right. And this was the last of those 3 businesses to get onto this business model. So now for us, that delay was so important. So now we can do things that we couldn't do before, and we can share,
right?
Sharing, visual, scanning AP and having people see all the invoices across all 3. And there was a lot of little stuff like that we're able to do. So yeah, it impacted them slightly because we had to put more resources out there, but I think everyone was happy that we got a better solution at the end.
It makes it better in the long run, right?
Exactly.
Because now you have a team that is not only more people, but a group of people that understands the process. They also helped you guys improve your processes. So that 4 to 5 month delay almost kind of a blessing in disguise because it made you guys more kind of tightly knit.
Exactly. It built and it built a lot of good relationships that people didn't really have before. I mean, you're sitting around and you're there, working long hours, and you're going out to dinner and you're sitting around talking about these things and these processes and getting to know these people. And it's very different when you're calling someone like we're right now, we're talking on video. If you know them, if you know a little about their back history and how and what's important to them, that team just gelled so much better. And even now, as we do things, it makes such a big difference.
You're live, obviously. And how long have you guys been? When did this actually go live? The full integration?
Back in April. So it's been a quarter now, and things are working pretty well. Some bugs. There's always little things, but the business is operating well. It's selling well. It's doing everything it needs to do. So we're very happy with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about those kind of, you said some bugs, some challenges, and some positive outcomes with this, kind of addition of this team and integrating them into the process. What were the things that changed both really, really well? And what are the hurdles that you now have to kind of overcome?
Yeah, I think for them, for the company as a whole, we now can see their numbers and we can see what they're doing, like same metrics. Before, the metrics are different. They have different calculations, different ways of costing, different steps in the process. So the thing that's really good now is when we have those conversations, it is apples to apples. It is, we can see things that are different here and try to help them better because we understand the metrics better, and it's one system. It also simplified things. So now the complexity is gone. That site didn't have all the security features, didn't have all this same level of OS for the backgrounds. And now we're giving all those things in there. So now they can incorporate into our, larger organization. So those standards came in there, the systems came in there, and it just makes it so much easier that we can support them and give them additional capabilities. The challenges are always just learning the new system, learning the new ways of doing things. People do move on. You may have someone who's been there for 20 years. And by the way, you're putting a new system on there and guess, hey, it's a great time to retire. So getting people get tooled up differently. But I have to say the collaboration between the 3 different businesses that are part of that division, one's on the East Coast, one's in the Midwest, and one's in the West Coast. Them working together more now and understanding each other's business better is priceless in this situation, because now they can work through these and they understand each other's data better. And now we can build these, business-wide or enterprise-wide applications, and we know each other's business a little bit better.
I'm going to go back a little bit because now I'm realizing you guys were working with these people before it was all under one umbrella too, right?
Right before I came on board, that we acquired them, and we had another acquisition after that, and that acquisition had to be incorporated right away. So that we jumped onto that one. But what we did in the meantime, before we can do this bigger project of incorporating, the ERP systems, is we put their firewalls out there. We started looking at their network and making sure their network was compatible with ours. We put new switches in. We're looking at their servers. We refreshed their PCs. So it gave us enough time to start looking at all the different areas that we can do to incorporate them in. And we have a run book and this whole playlist of thing of what we have to do. So it gave us the time to do that right. And again, it was during the pandemic. So everything was going slower because you had
Yeah,
people to get out there. You had to explain to people how to,
that's right.
because they weren't there. So for us, I think that delay of time actually helped. So they were in a better state when we were able to do this, and their infrastructure and their foundation was in place.
Obviously, you said a lot of positive outcomes, visibility into data, everyone's able to understand each other, less kind of gaps in communication.
Yep.
That's it's very qualitative how we've worded it, but how otherwise are you measuring the success or impact of this project? Obviously, probably the things you were accomplishing are more efficient, but are you saying that anecdotally, or are there ways that you measure and go, oh yeah, things are actually moving much faster and much more efficiently?
No, we are. I mean, and they are, and there's some areas that are still a little bit slower than before, which is expected. But for us, what the metrics to make sure that this is working right is, can they ship correctly? Are we seeing the numbers in the right way? The costing, is the costing equivalent to where we came from before? So if you look at the costing of this, is it costed very similarly or even better? So now we're using our model. When you look at the inventory in there, the accuracy levels, are people able to move the things around? Are we able to ship things on time or even quicker than before? So these are the different metrics that we're able to pull out, look at what they were doing before and compare them to see that they are operational and they are at a good steady state right now.
What determines whether you decide to work with a business as a partner, and then when you decide to actually acquire them and acquire them and kind of integrate them into your business?
We are a company of merger and acquisitions. We started with 2 paper mills back around 11 years ago. Another company was divesting because they were merging and they had to divest those mills, and it was a joint venture between the Kraft Group and Schwartz and the Schwartz partners, and they formed it New-Indy. So for us, we strategically are looking at ways to grow the company. So we have 4 mills now across the country, and then we went into packaging. So when we look at these companies, some of them could be our customers today, or some could be other partners we're sharing at, but they may have an interest in saying, hey, we're interested in being sold or coming, merging into a company. And so we look at those acquisitions to see that strategically can help us both horizontally and vertically, because we produce the paper and then it goes all the way to being boxes or displays. So that they're kind of the companies that we look for, that we're acquiring to, is where can it fit into our whole strategic model there.
Would you say ultimately, even with the delay, that this project achieved the goals that you're hoping to achieve? Or did it achieve more than you expected, less than you expected?
I would say it achieved what I wanted to achieve, and then some side goals that I didn't even know that we were going to achieve. So for the business goals, yes, we did what we wanted to do. And I think we've incorporated some additional synergies that was great from the delays. The other things that it helped for us is it allowed us to know the team a lot better. So when we're building out our team across that whole division, that team now knows each other's capabilities. They know who each other is, and we're able to better put people in the right spot to support that whole group out there. So for me, I think that was a great step. One of the people who is running that group for me is a director of that area, and he's been, flows up his sleeves, is involved in all this stuff, but he knows his team now so much better, and he's been able to put people in the right spot and tap into their talent now. And I think that a lot of that was because it's delay and how well the whole team had to work together.
You kind of alluded to it earlier, but is there anything that you wish you would have known beginning the project that you know now?
Yeah, I mean, I think just taking that approach. I mean, the thing is, my background, I did a lot of SAP implementations, and I did all these ERPs, and it's kind of like I didn't do them for a while, and we make some assumptions, and I think the whole team made some assumptions that this would be able to fit into our model. And I think we have to do a better step now in the future. I wish I would have known that we should do that a little better of a gap fit, not just that the processes are called the same, but can they actually operate them the way we do it? So there's a whole couple of nuances that I wish I knew about for our industry, but it's going to help us now for future acquisitions. I think now we have a model that's more robust, that we can absorb someone coming from a competitor who's large, or even from a mom and pop who's selling their business.
And I guess, we've talked about how we learn, grow, and keep up to date. And sometimes the best way to do that is from those failures, those challenges. And sometimes that's the only way you can learn certain things.
Of course.
Are there any tools or strategies that you used or that you kind of adapted to use that you strongly recommend other people use for their projects?
I think the strategy is really to establish one thing that we did do prior to this is establish our PMO. So we established a group with certain stages of our projects, how we view our projects, how do we ask for help, how do we, you know, stay in step to know where our resources are going. And I think that was critical. If we didn't have that in place, because there was a couple of projects running when I first got here that I didn't understand all the visibility. I think taking the time to do that and setting that up before you do something big is important, because that way you have the right mechanisms in place. I think making sure you have a solid project management system. It could be a Microsoft project, it could be Smartsheet, it could be whatever it is, but have a consistent tool that allows you to see things the same way across the business, I think was critical for us to be able to manage this project correctly and see where some of the problems were and how we can help.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because when you joined, you said there are some projects that you didn't have full visibility into, and that, you know, leads to a lot of delay and lack of communication, because you are unable to efficiently pick it up because you don't know where it's at, like where it's going, where it's been, right? And so being able to kind of lay that out as explicitly as possible not only just helps the direction, but it also can kind of mitigate, you know, maybe somebody has to leave and somebody has to like join in last second. Can they pick it up quickly because they know where it's at and stuff like that? When we talk about kind of implementing a solution or seeing a problem and coming up with a solution, a huge part of it, which kind of goes under the radar sometimes, is actually the time it takes to actually just plan it out and really set it so that all relevant parties understand it. Obviously, you said you learned from this past project a lot of things that will help you kind of for projects in the future. What are some of your ongoing projects, upcoming projects, and how do you feel about those?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We have, I think, it's to keep the list of stuff that we keep having to do. It just goes to the whole time. But the reason is if you go back to when I talked about this one New-Indy, you know, first was the foundational, putting everything together. Then is these application stacks and getting people working on the same stack across the businesses. And then the next level is really taking advantage of all that work you've done and be more transformational. So work around getting, like I talked before about the sensors in our sites, getting predictive analytics in place that can look for maintenance coming down, getting that more consistent across the sites and have them share that information, because that's another problem. Operation OT technology, which is a whole nother area that we have to deal with, getting that up to standards too, getting that, protecting it from ransomware. We have another, you know, the things around our data warehousing. Where does ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI fit into our environment? So all these things are layering in for us to be able to do things bigger and better. And, you know, technology is now so consumer based and people have access to it. So we have to stay ahead of that, because people can jump in, you know, go on to
Right.
ChatGPT right now, dump in all private information and ask it to rewrite it for me. But then again, now I have a data loss problem. So there's all these things we're trying to get ahead of so we can give those capabilities and functions for our business. And there's some of the projects we're looking at right now.
And I think that's a very key feature of technology, which is always trying to stay ahead of something that is moving so intensely fast. And there was I don't remember who said it, but there was a quote I read. It was like an inventor, and they went, "I'm just here to invent the thing. I'm not here to kind of implement the security and the ethics around it." And that's something that we naturally, I think it's human nature, is like, oh, this is a really cool thing. Yeah. And now it's this thing that we implement. We're like, oh shoot, there's a lot. You said, you know, like there's private data you can plug into ChatGPT, and now there's data loss, right? And so now you have to figure out how to kind of work around these technologies. And the only way to do that is stay as ahead as you possibly can, which is definitely like a tall task for sure. But
yeah, ahead and all around you too. It's a
yeah, exactly. It felt like an exaggeration, but it really is all consuming, because technology is almost, it feels like everything, right? Yeah. And that's especially now, but it's such a human thing, right? We're always looking to invent something to make our lives easier, and it's been like that since the beginning of our existence. But now it feels more prevalent than ever, because everybody has technology in their pockets, because everything we do is on a laptop. And then when COVID happened, everything really was virtual and remote, and we needed to lean into technology. And now we're just catching up to that. And so it's a very interesting sort of progression. With that being said, things are moving faster than ever before. 5 years from now, you're sitting at your desk. What are you doing? How have things changed? What does kind of the landscape look like for you?
That's a great question. So if I'm here 5 years from now looking across here, I would say hopefully everything is much more standardized. We have one way of doing things. We're a bigger company. But for us, it's going to be that same challenge again. I think we'll be in a better spot, but the challenge would be I need to be able to do things quicker, more visibility, more access to it, and I need to keep it locked down so the bad guys aren't going to hurt me. I think that's the biggest challenge we have today. People want more and more, and they want it accessible. So 5 years from now, I think we'll be a bigger company. I think we'll probably be offering more capabilities to our customers. Hopefully, we'll reduce the complexity in our company. And hopefully I'll be looking at some new and exciting challenges within the company. I mean, for me, I think the thing that excites me the most is what kind of problems can I solve? So hopefully there'll be new problems out 5 years from now.
I love that. I look forward to the challenges that I will kind of have to overcome. I mean, I think that's just a really great mindset to have, right? Because it's never going to be smooth sailing. No. And really what makes you a good leader and people who are leaders good in general is their ability to adapt and change, and then be able to properly communicate that to their team so that the team can also adapt and change. So are there any final thoughts that you want to share that you didn't get to during the course of this interview? No,
I mean, I guess the only thing I would want to say is, like, New-Indy is a newer company, and our IT organization is even newer than that. And we're the first group that's going across the whole company. So for us, it has been a challenge because they're used to being in their own individual companies, and for us to do things differently. But we see finance and HR coming behind us, and they're going to be doing similar things. When I ask people to join who are joining the company, I ask them some very specific questions. And one question I ask them for is, do you want something that's set up and you know what you're going to do every day and your processes are defined? Or are you someone who wants to come in here, put your fingerprints everywhere? You could be doing one thing one day and one thing the other. And I'm looking for the second person who can do almost anything and wants those challenges and likes the creativity. And that's what it is. When you're growing this fast sometimes and you're trying to play catch up all the time, you need those people to help you fill in the gaps and be creative. And that's a team we brought in. So the last thing I want to say is the team makes the difference. And we have such amazing people that joined the company and they keep joining it. I've been impressed. And I think that makes the difference for almost any IT organization. You can have all the technology in the world. If you don't have the right team to implement it and knows your business, you can roll up their sleeves and get it done. It doesn't make a difference.
I could not agree more. I just wanted to thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
I'm also very selfish about these because I get to learn so much. And just in this 35-minute conversation, I feel like there's so much that I can reflect on and think about just personally. And so I hope that if I can take from that, anyone who does listen to this takes the same thing. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And I really, really enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, that's terrific. Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and take care. VCOM Solutions is here to help make your IT projects and day-to-day operations as easy and efficient as possible. If you'd like to see how VCOM can help your organization save time and money, request a demo at vcomsolutions.com/demo. Do you work in IT? Be a guest on BrainDrop. Go to vcomsolutions.com/BrainDropGuest to sign up. Thanks again for dropping in. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can find us on social media at VCOM Solutions. Until next time.